In this video, I'm going to show you exactly what it takes to go from a setup like this to a setup like this. And it's actually pretty easy once you know about 3 things. If you do all 3 of these things, your video will look like a professional YouTuber's, while still being unique to you. And the best part is you can do all 3 of these things, including everything you see on screen right now, for under $100. Let's go! The first thing we need to take care of is the backdrop. Having all of this stuff in the background makes it really hard to know what we're supposed to be focusing on. So if you want the focus to be on you, make the background nice and simple and try to make it a color that contrasts you. So what I decided to do was buy a bunch of these foam sound panels. They're super cheap and they'll have the added bonus of absorbing my voice so there's less echo. Now obviously they're not going to stand up on their own, so I also bought this 4-foot by 8-foot sheet of foam to put them on. The installation process is pretty simple. The foam includes a bunch of these double-sided glue dots, so I just took 5 of those, put 1 in each corner and 1 in the center, and then after uncovering the second side, I pressed on the piece of foam, making sure to press down over each of the glue dots to try to get a good bond between the base foam, the glue dot, and the final foam. I also decided to alternate between the lines being vertical and the lines being horizontal with each piece of foam in this kind of checkerboard pattern because I think it looks a lot cooler. Now that I've filled the 4x8 with all of those foam tiles, I don't really have a way to suspend it behind me. Now I needed it to be about 2 feet off the ground so it would cover from all the way at the bottom of the camera to the top, and the solution I came up with was a tripod. You've got to keep in mind that whoever's watching your video doesn't know whether this is a complete wall or just a piece of foam on a tripod. At least I'm hoping you didn't know until now. Now I will say with just one tripod the foam does tend to bend back a little, probably because I had to bend mine when I was putting it in my car so that I could drive it home. But if you don't bend your foam, it should be straight. And if you do have problems with foam bending, you might want to consider getting 2 tripods, which is what I ended up doing. With 1 tripod at each end, there's no longer any bending. So with 32 foam tiles, a styrofoam 4x8, and a tripod, we just made a professional looking backdrop for $69. And all of these items are linked in the description right below the subscribe button. But even with this awesome backdrop that looks super professional, why does the video still look terrible? It's because of the lighting. Currently, I'm only being lit by 2 fluorescent lights over in that direction, and because they're both very white and very bright, they're going to make some really harsh shadows, and they're going to cast glare on the camera, which you can probably see over on this side. So if I'm here, and the camera is right about here, then we want to have 2 lights, each of them at about 45 degrees. So the first light is going to be right about here, and this is going to be our brightest light in the entire scene. This is called our key light, and it's the one that gives us most of the light that's shining on our face. If we have the brightest light pointed at us, that'll mean we're the brightest part of the video and it'll be easiest for people to pay attention to us. But if I just have that light, then again, this side of my face is a lot darker and more shadowed than I'd like it to be. And if my hand goes up like this, it makes the whole shot look bad because there's too much darkness. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna add another light, again at 45 degrees, but this one is going to be a bit less bright than the first light. And this will make sure that we still have a brighter side and a darker side, but the darker side isn't ridiculously dark. It still looks reasonably well lit, or at least that's the goal. Now, these lights can be anything that you have on hand. They can be a desk lamp like this. That's actually what I'm using as my main key light right now. You can use one of those artist lamps that lets you aim it wherever you want. Those are very helpful. You can use a battery-powered LED panel like this, or you can make them yourself with one of these LED panels and an Arduino Nano. These things can be super bright and they can change to any color. Now, you have to attach these LED panels to some sort of structure so they can't flop around. And you can just make this out of cardboard by cutting a little hole for the wires to go through and cutting it to about the size of the LED panel. Then you can solder 3 connections to the Arduino. Red goes to VN, black goes to ground, and green goes to port 13. Once you've done that, you just shove the Arduino through, glue the Arduino to one side, glue the LEDs to the other, and your panel is already complete. Now there's a few upgrades you can do if you want to make it better. For example, soldering one of these buttons between ground and port 3, which allows you to have a button so you can change the color on the fly, just a little bit faster than plugging it into your computer every time you want to change the color. You can also take a piece of paper, cut it down to about the size of the panel, a little longer though, and then glue each end of the paper to one end of the panel. And then you'll have this paper kind of sticking out a little bit in front of the LEDs. This will make the LEDs get at least a little bit more diffused, a little bit more smoothed out, rather than them just being these piercing little dots. And the last thing you can do is glue on a little stick of cardboard to act as a handle. I find this super useful because I like putting them in these phone holders or things like that, and having this handle makes them a lot easier to just place around. So if you don't have any lights in your house, you can absolutely make 2 of these, or if you have one light around that you like the color of, you can use that light and then color match one of these panels to be the exact same, and you should get a very professional shot. Now with the backdrop and the lights, this is looking like a really professional video, but it's also looking a bit boring. So we need to add some personality and a final professional touch that will make the video look absolutely amazing. But first, this whole video is about leveling up your video quality, and PCBWay does the exact same thing for your DIY projects. Don't have a 3D printer? You can order prints from them. Want to make a more polished version of your electronics project? They manufacture custom PCBs. Need strong parts with precise dimensions? They can CNC metal parts for you, and they do all of these things at incredibly affordable prices, so check out PCBWay.com right now to level up your next project. So what's the final missing piece that we need to level up this recording setup? Well, obviously some stuff in the background. Now, you don't want to make it too busy, that's the problem we had earlier on, so I recommend adding just one thing to each side. But it can't just be anything. You need it to be a light. If you look at a lot of YouTubers or streamers, they absolutely love having lights in their background. And there's 2 reasons for that. One, I mean, we can all agree these lights that they have are cool. Second, if you have bright lights in your background, it makes this kind of halo around your shoulders and head, one that really helps you pop out from your background. So I'm going to show you how to do 4 different light options for your background that I think are really cool. But remember, for your background, you can do whatever you want. It's your time to shine. First up, you can straight up use one of those panel lights that I showed you how to make earlier. If you cover one of these with a sheet of paper, or maybe I should have done 2 or 3, you can make a cool glowing square. And I'm sure you've seen lots of YouTubers use this exact same type of light in their background. And since you can change it to any color, it gives you a lot of variety between different videos. Or maybe you want to show off something that's not a light. Well, obviously this isn't as powerful of a light, but you can absolutely take one of those panel lights or even a regular light and have it spotlight the wall, and then you can hang whatever you want. A cool DIY project, your favorite prop, maybe even a picture. This is a great way to make sure people can actually see whatever you think is cool enough that you hung it on the background of your video. But this next one just destroys the others. You can make a neon sign like this for under $10. It starts with an LED strip like this off of Amazon, and after that, everything is free. You draw out your letters on some cardboard, and once you've drawn them, you can cut them out using a box cutter or even a pair of scissors. I recommend using scissors for the curved lines, as those are kind of hard to do with a box cutter. Then you take the LED strip and you glue it around the edge of the letters. You don't need to glue the curved parts, just glue the straight parts, and the curved parts will stay bent at an appropriate angle, and everything will work out fine. So I'll start with this little straight line here at the bottom of the Y, and then once your straight line has dried, you can go ahead on, paint out the next straight line with glue, glue the light down, and continue doing that for the entire rest of the letter. But when you get to the end, you have to be careful, because you can't just cut these LED strips at any point. You can see on mine every few inches we have this little copper colored mark on the outside of the strip. These are the points at which you can cut the strip. In between each of those lines is a set of, 6 LEDs that are all connected together. So if you cut in between those lines, you'll ruin that whole section of 6 LEDs. So you have to cut at the lines, and sometimes it works out, but sometimes you're left with a lot sticking off. In this case, what you want to do is very carefully use a box cutter to kind of slice around the edge of the silicone, and then hopefully you'll be able to, cut it and just kind of pull off that silicone, and the strip will be left all on its own. Then you can tuck that, behind the cardboard or somewhere like that where it's out of the way, and it'll look like your strip ended at the perfect point. Then you take this little LED controller, which comes with the LEDs, and you split its 4 wires into however many wires you need to go to all of your different letters. Now, I'll be the first to admit that it doesn't look great in the light. If you want it to look a bit better, you could use wood or at least paint the cardboard with some spray paint or something like that. But if it's a bit darker and you turn that bad boy on, you can't tell me that doesn't look good. I mean, look at it. You can make that for $10. And it changes color. There's only one thing I can think of that could possibly beat that DIY sign, both on coolness and on brightness, and it's this lightsaber. Dude, this thing is insanely bright. If you want to learn how to make it, check out this video right here, and don't hold it too close to your eyes, because if you do, I think it'll actually melt your brains out.